Open the oven door. That blackened crust baked into the walls and floor has probably been building for months. The door gets closed again. The problem stays. And somewhere in the back of the mind, it becomes one of those things that belongs to a future version of the week that never quite arrives. Here is what almost nobody talks about. That layer of carbonized grease is not just an eyesore. Every time the oven preheats, those residues heat up again and release compounds into the air inside the cavity where food is cooking. Scientists call them polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. They migrate into the food. They enter the kitchen air. And the commercial cleaners most households reach for to solve the problem are, if anything, a second layer of contamination on top of the first. The oven ends up coated in industrial solvent residue that no label ever fully accounts for. Japan approached this problem differently, not with a better product, with a better understanding of what oven grease actually is and what it becomes over time. The cleaning industry built its business model around a specific assumption: that oven cleaning is a horrible, unavoidable annual event, and that the only logical response is an aggressive chemical solution. That assumption is worth examining. Commercial oven cleaners typically contain sodium hydroxide, monoethanolamine, and butoxy-diglycol. The label instructs protective gloves, adequate ventilation, and keeping children and pets clear of the room. These are the same precautions on industrial degreasing agents used in auto repair shops. And then that product goes inside the appliance where a family bakes their bread, roasts their chicken, and heats their children's food. Nobody pauses on that. It became ordinary. Japan did not follow that path. The reason goes back further than chemistry. In Japan, there is a concept called soji. The word translates loosely to cleaning, but it carries the weight of something closer to a discipline. Soji is rooted in Zen Buddhism and Shintoism, two traditions that treat the act of maintaining a clean space as inseparable from respecting it. For Zen monks, sweeping the temple courtyard holds the same spiritual value as meditation. The act itself is the practice. This is not abstract philosophy. It shows up in the most practical places. In every Japanese elementary school, there are no janitors. The children clean the classrooms, the corridors, and the bathrooms themselves every afternoon before they leave. They have done this since age 6. By the time a Japanese adult stands in a kitchen, a daily wipe down of the oven after use is not a decision. It is a reflex, as automatic as turning off the lights when leaving a room. The result is that Japanese ovens simply never reach the state most Western kitchens accept as normal. Not because of better appliances, because the grease never gets the chance to become permanent. Here is the science that explains why timing matters so much. Oven grease is not a single substance. It is a complex polymer. When fat splatters onto a hot oven wall, the heat triggers a process called oxidative polymerization. The fat molecules chemically bond to each other and to the enamel surface beneath them. The longer that surface is repeatedly reheated, the more those bonds cross-link and harden. After months of use, what sits on the oven wall is not grease anymore. It is a cured resin, fused to the enamel at a molecular level. This is why scrubbing barely works. Physical force cannot break a chemical bond. The brush moves across the surface, the outermost layer shifts slightly, and the bond underneath stays completely intact. Commercial cleaners use sodium hydroxide, caustic enough to dissolve organic tissue, to break those polymer chains by brute force. The chemistry works, but it leaves alkaline residue on the enamel, particularly around the door seals, that requires thorough rinsing to neutralize. Baking soda targets the same polymer bonds through a gentler mechanism. As a mild alkali, it disrupts the fatty acid chains without the aggression of sodium hydroxide. The critical variable is time. Given 8 hours of contact, the chemistry completes quietly on its own. The foundation of the Japanese method is disarmingly simple. Every time the oven finishes cooling to a safe temperature after use, a cloth dampened with hot water is wrung out and wiped across the interior, floor, back wall, sides, and door glass. Not scrubbing, wiping. The residual warmth in the oven surfaces softens the fresh grease just enough that it releases from the enamel without resistance. The polymer bonds have not yet fully formed. The chemistry is still incomplete. 2 minutes of cloth contact interrupts the process before it can finish. An oven maintained this way never accumulates the kind of baked-on residue that requires intervention. The problem is solved before it exists. For an oven that has gone months without attention, baking soda paste changes everything. Half a cup of baking soda mixed with water, a tablespoon at a time, produces a thick, spreadable paste. Applied across every interior surface, including walls, floor, and door glass, and kept clear of the heating elements, it begins reacting almost immediately. In the spots with the heaviest grease buildup, the paste turns brown within minutes. That discoloration is visible evidence of the baking soda breaking down oxidized fat molecules, working its way through the polymer layers from the outside in. The oven door closes, 8 hours pass. Overnight is ideal. The alkaline paste works in silence, dismantling months of carbonized buildup without a single scratch to the enamel beneath it. In the morning, a warm, damp cloth reveals what was underneath. Sheets of dark brown residue lift cleanly away, exposing pale enamel that has been there all along, perfectly preserved under layers that looked permanent. A plastic scraper handles any remaining patches. Never use metal, enamel scratches are irreversible. A spray of plain white vinegar across the interior causes the residual baking soda to fizz gently, carbon dioxide lifting the last dissolved particles to the surface. One final wipe. The oven looks like a different appliance. For monthly upkeep, 2 lemons cut in half, squeezed into an oven-safe dish with water, heated to 175 degrees Celsius until boiling, then left to steam in a closed oven for 30 minutes. The citric acid carried in the steam acts as a natural degreaser on any light buildup that has accumulated. The oven opens smelling of citrus. One wipe with a damp cloth and the interior is clean. No chemicals, no fumes, nothing to rinse out. The deeper lesson from Japan is not really about baking soda or lemon steam or the chemistry of oven grease. It is about the relationship between daily habits and the problems they prevent. Japanese households do not wait until something becomes a disaster. They build small, consistent rituals into the rhythm of the day that stop disasters from forming in the first place. Soji is not about cleaning harder. It is about cleaning sooner. A fresh layer of grease and a 6-month-old layer of grease are not the same problem. The energy required to address each one is not even comparable. An oven does not need an industrial intervention once a year. It needs 2 minutes of attention after each use and one ingredient that costs almost nothing. That is the system. And once it becomes a reflex, the oven stops being a source of guilt or dread. It becomes the most ordinary thing in the kitchen. If this changed how you think about your oven, subscribe.